Hi all, I'm Cullen Haynes and welcome to Live with Cullen Haynes, Ledger Legends, episode number 18. We came out with episode 17 earlier today with Christy Ondrachek, the CFO of CPA Houston down in Texas. And for a special treat, we've got a double banger episode today. This gentleman has spent 18 years at CFO Magazine and is now the lead editor in charge of over 21,000 professionals who digest and read this absolute powerhouse magazine and content online, in physical. Met him a few times in, I think it was at the Bar Association, and it was a great catch up. We immediately struck a chord, met originally on LinkedIn, and it's always good to take the online offline. And I thought, Richard, we need to bring you on the show because your magic, your energy, what you're doing for the finance community is awesome. So we need to bring you on the show. So without further ado, we're going to bring on Mr. Richard McBride, the editor of CFO Magazine, here for episode 18 of Ledger Legends. Please make a warm welcome and make him feel very comfortable. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you so much, Cullen. That was a hell of an introduction, and sounds like I've got some big feet to follow. So if you have had a CFO on here already today, I hope that I can add some value. But thank you for having me.
No, it's an honor to have you, my friend. And I will say, before we get into the questions for Richard, it is live. This is currently 5:15, the drive home, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So if you have any burning questions for Richard, please put them in the comments, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X. This is live. You can get it on any podcast. And thank you for rewatching and re-listening. But nonetheless, what is happening in your world, Richard? Tell us in a nutshell what's going on in your circle of influence.
No, that's a great starting question. There's a lot going on. To say the evolution of the CFO role continues. I say, obviously everyone's talking about AI, everyone's talking about disruption. There's global things going on. Obviously, with Trump is throwing in curveballs. So there's never a dull moment for CFOs. I think this year, one of the key things has been very much in that sort of digital transformation. So a lot of organizations are sort of going through a lot of different transformations. The beauty with what we do, we see it all. So we see the top end of town, we see the sort of the mid-market, we see the SMBs, we see those fast growth companies, and we're also seeing things like fractional CFOs as well. So it's a great space to be in. And as I say, there's never a dull moments. Things are always going on. And obviously, we sort of covered the whole of Australia and New Zealand. So it's very exciting.
That is fantastic. And in terms of what we're talking about today, I put from, storyteller to strategy architect, I guess, the huge role that CFOs play in this era of change. You wear many hats yourself. I'd love to ask just a nice cheeky questions at the start, nice and fun, keep it light. If you had to describe your career so far using just film titles, how would you do that, mon ami?
That is a great question. I would say, look, the first film title is Sliding Doors. My life.
What a movie! Gwyneth Paltrow. Yes,
absolutely. A classic, and I think it is. Life does sort of not always go the sort of the path that you think it's going to go down. So, I started in the UK. I worked a little bit of time in the south of France. I moved across to Barcelona, and then ended up in Sydney. I said my career obviously in Australia started in Sydney, and then moved down here to Melbourne. There's been times in America. I've done a lot of time in New Zealand. And as I say, when I think about my career, there's those sliding door moments where you say yes to something, and then that leads to somewhere else. So I never planned on coming out to Australia. Just circumstances took me there. Second movie title, probably The Greatest Showman. I think,
a bit of Hugh Jackman. This is the greatest show.
That's it. It's one of my favorite kind of modern musicals, if you like. And I think that's what we do here. I was just having a conversation very similar earlier today, just saying that with events, there's always that point where you've got nothing. You've always just got a concept. It's you don't necessarily have. You may have a venue, you may have one speaker or something like that, and so the rest of it, you've got to be the ringmaster. You've got to sort of whip up a frenzy. You've got to get people excited because if you're not excited, the audience isn't excited. So yes, I think The Greatest Showman. There's a lot of a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different pieces that you've got to bring together. speakers, sponsors, audiences, suppliers. It's all got to sort of come together for the great show, which, in some cases may be a conference, it may be a webinar, it may be some content. So yeah, those are the two that sort of stand out, the thing that got me to where I am now, and then obviously, putting things together. So those are my two standout movie titles.
If you're tuning in, Mr. Richard McBride, the lead editor at CFO Magazine, has said Sliding Doors sums up his life and The Greatest Showman. A lot of Gen Zers haven't watched anything before 2000, so they probably don't know what Sliding Doors is. They probably know what The Greatest Showman is, but they don't know it's actually a true story based on P.T. Barnum, who once said the noblest art is making people happy. And you certainly do that, I must say there, Richard. But look, talking about making people happy, your personal network, you've grown it to, like me, over 20,000 people on LinkedIn. What is the secret sauce to creating and fostering a leading, strong community and tribe?
Yeah, look, I think it's authenticity. I think in this day and age, we live in very strange times where, there's less and less sort of human contact. Everything's done via sort of text or messaging, emojis.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about being present. It's about being there with all of the conferences we do, with all of the events, with all of the webinars. I make contact with people, and I love what I do. I love to get out there and meet new people. My life, I say, strangely, in the last kind of 20 years, it's almost like a sixth sense. I see CFOs wherever I go. It's become not just my working life. It's also become my professional, my personal life. In that, a lot of good friends are CFOs because I spend my life surrounded by CFOs and finance execs. So for me, it's about getting out there, shaking hands, meeting people, connecting with people, just like yourself. As you said in the introduction, we connected and resonated because we're similar people. We like to get out there. I'm old school, so I started my career doing cold calling, face-to-face meetings, and I think that there's a real skill in still doing that, because I think nowadays it's so hard. COVID didn't really help things. It took us all offline. It took us, separated us, and so I think that there's still an enormous skill set in terms of getting out there, shaking a hand, and not being afraid to say, I don't know you, but I want to get to know you.
I love that. And you're being so modest. You're actually from one of the hardest hit places in the world during COVID, Melbourne, Victoria, for our international listeners and watchers, which was devastated during COVID and had one of the longest lockdowns. But still, you've come out of it the other end with a great smile there, Richard. And I commend you, sir. And let's be maybe off topic here, but let's settle it. Is the coffee better in Sydney or Melbourne?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, it's getting expensive, is coffee these days, and
it is.
I've got a very good friendship with one of our suppliers who does all the coffees with us. He would definitely, if I was to say Sydney's better, I think he would have words with me. So I'm going to go with Melbourne. And Melbourne's where I've been the last 20 years, so you can't beat a Melbourne coffee. Wellington's a close second, and Byron, I think, is a close third. So
oh my goodness, yeah. Yes.
Controversial.
There's a few cheeky places in Byron that you suggested on my recent trip. But yeah, absolutely. Always don't mind a Byron copy. So Sydney, if you're just tuning in, has come in 4 on the list, number 4. But obviously you wear many hats, and we touched on it at the start. You are the lead editor at CFO Magazine. You've also got your producer of the CFO series. So I'd love to ask, where do you see, or how do you see the role of the modern CFO changing in the realm and the age of AI and digital transformation?
Yeah, that's it's an interesting one. It's an interesting time because the CFO role has 100% evolved into it's a cliche to say from back office to sort of forefront, but it is true. When we first started doing these events almost 20 years ago,
yes.
Very, very different to what it is today, and CFOs are so much more influential. They see the past, the present, the future. They have access to all the information. It's the digital heart of a business these days. So
yes.
So they've got the lens across the whole business. I think it's only going to become more and more influential. I think the chief finance operating officer will definitely become a thing. It's already really starting to become a thing. There's a lot of CFOs that go into COO, then become CEOs. If you look at Telstra, I think Coles, Qantas, their CEOs are all former CFOs. Same with Optus. That used to be Stephen Rue, who was at News Limited. So they have the skill sets. It used to be very much sales went into CEO roles, but now I think you need that numbers sort of base, but then you also have to have that operational sort of side, the strategic side. And again, if you look at any board in corporate Australia, chances are it will have either former CFOs or former heads of the big four accounting firms. So I think the sky's the limit with CFOs. If you've got that skill set, it can take you in so many more different directions than previously.
No, very, very well said. I mean, indeed, by what you're saying, and obviously you've come across thousands of people and you've conducted, thousands of CFO interviews in your time. Is there any common elements or things that have surprised you, traits about the leaders in the space that you've come across that you'd like to share with everyone watching, rewatching, or re-listening right now, Richard?
Look, I think, again, if you sort of think back 20 years ago, when we first started doing these events, it was it was middle to the sort of latter age white men in beige jackets, very stuffy, they were lovely, but it was, they would turn up with a floppy disk, and which obviously half the audience wouldn't even know what a floppy disk is, and they would turn up and do a sort of death by PowerPoint. It would last about an hour. They would sort of cover very much accounting standards, and that was kind of how it used to be. I think you fast forward to where we are now, and you look at the kind of the CFO makeup of Australia and New Zealand. It's so diverse. It's so dynamic. You still have a little bit of old school in there, but for the most part now, when you look at the makeup of CFOs across corporate Australia, it is very, very different. And it's exciting. When I look at the events that we do, rarely is it sort of numbers and accounting based. It's much more strategy. It's much more relationship based. It's much more technology based, data based, obviously AI and emerging technologies. So I think that, the scope, it's changed dramatically in the last kind of, especially 10 years. And I think that's only going to get faster and faster. I look at the topics and the feedback that we receive, and it's about cybersecurity and how CFOs can foster a better culture, and how CFOs can be leading in initiatives for digital transformation all the way through to product development. So it's we've sort of coined the phrase, there's never been a better time to be a CFO, and I fully stand by that.
Very, very well. You heard it here first. Well, halfway through the stream, there's been no better time to become a CFO. And obviously you've learned a lot from others, but is there a skill or a surprising trait that you have, Richard, that has helped you in your role and your career?
I mean, yes. Look, for me, again, sort of going back to my sort of early days, just picking up a phone. I think it was Richard Branson, who said everything starts with a phone call, and I fully believe that. Nowadays, it might not necessarily be a phone call; it might be a LinkedIn message. I sort of there's a real sort of crossover. I think sort of 10, 15 years ago, you would never have sent someone a cold, message on their social media or a text message, whereas now it's kind of blurred lines, but there's still that element of saying, "Hey, can we chat? Can we talk? I've got this idea," and providing it's relevant, providing it's well thought out, most people will give me the time of day, and that whether that's someone wanting to sponsor one of our events, speak at one of our events, attend an event, it all starts by just reaching out and saying hi, and so I think that one of my sort of favorite skill sets is having that tenacity. I also have thick skin. I've had a lot of rejection. I did cold calling for about 5 years, and so I've had a lot of no's, and I've had a lot of no thank yous and worse. So I think that's also a good skill set to have, just that resilience to go, what, that's fine, onwards, and we move forward.
Onwards and upwards. Well, yes, we met through LinkedIn. So case in point, we're a perfect example of what you're talking about. And if only there was a book which actually taught you the great subtle ways to be good on LinkedIn. There is. It's written by yours truly, 23 Laws, the Laws of LinkedIn. Go and find it on Amazon. But nonetheless, how do you unwind after a particularly tough day there, Richard?
Ooh, look, it's a controversial one, but I'm just gonna say, but I have a drink. It's as long as it's a fizzy drink, it doesn't have to be alcoholic. It's just very fizzy. But yeah, no, and listen to music. I love music. I love winding down, spending time with the family, obviously as well. But sometimes I say all you need to do is just switch some music on and just chill out. So that's my one rule, just to have that little bit of private time, that little bit of space, just to decompress.
Absolutely. What's on the Spotify mix list at the moment? What have you got in there? Or what's your favorite go-to?
Oh, look, anybody who knows me knows that I love musical theatre. So I've always got some musical theatre. My daughter's probably programmed it to be Wicked, because obviously the new movie's coming out. Which is coming out, I think, on the 19th in Australia. But Hadestown, actually, Hadestown is on my playlist at the moment.
I've heard a lot of good things on Hadestown. Have you seen Six, the story of Henry VIII's 6 wives?
Yes, I took my daughter to see Six. We loved it. It's there is a movie version which I've been told is coming out as well. They filmed it.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, if you haven't got onto it, it's very, very funny, very good. It's only 6 people in the whole show. Obviously, divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. But nonetheless, it takes it to a whole new level. So I have great respect for you there, Richard. And it reminds me of another good friend who's been on the Law Live show, Peter Hunt. He's a leading partner and owns his own firm now. So he actually has he loves musical theatre like you. He's got his own column called The Arched Eyebrow, where he rates and reviews, musicals and theatres. And I think it's like 4 eyebrows. And so it's not stars, but like if it gets 4 arched eyebrows, it's a good show. And I think he doesn't mind a bit of Hadestown as well.
Excellent. I will look that up because yes, I dare say we will have a lot of commonalities there. So no, thank you for that.
Very good. And shout out to Peter Hunt as well. Are there any passion projects that you wouldn't mind sharing that you're working on right now that are near and dear to your heart there, Richard?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Look, we're actually, it's funny. I've been challenged by a good colleague of mine or a good friend of mine actually, so who is also a CFO, and he has challenged me to write a book, and so I've got a few ideas, which, as I say, I don't think the book will be about me. In fact, it definitely won't be about me. But I'm going to keep it slightly under wraps. But yes, there is a passion project with a book coming out there. Obviously, in the world of events, you always live sort of 12 months in the future. So we've got the 2026 calendar mapped out. We start in Melbourne, Brisbane. We're revisiting Perth for the first time since COVID, which I say obviously locked us out of WA. So we're returning to WA next year, which is exciting. We're back in New Zealand for the second year.
Let's go.
Return, absolutely. It was always a great region because there's not many events out there for CFOs. So we were always very welcomed, and say the support in WA, the finance community. I say because it's a small place, it's almost like a sort of high school reunion or a university reunion. Everyone sort of knows everyone, but then at the same time you've got a lot of internationals that do sort of a couple of years in WA. So yeah, excited to be back in Perth. We're obviously in Sydney, and we're back in New Zealand. So. Yeah, New Zealand is back on the cards. I said we were here for the first time since COVID this year. It was an awesome day, great energy in the room. So we're looking forward to returning back there next year. So 5 in-person events, and then so there's probably about another 15 or 20 webinars amongst the mix.
Very good there, Richard. And we've got a question from Sam Hussain on Instagram, a leading legal professional in his own right. How do you think current CFOs consider their role in navigating climate risk challenges for the company?
That's a great question, and it's a bit of a sort of the elephant in the room. I feel in that there are some companies that are very progressive. There's some companies which are already sort of quite a few steps ahead. I think next year will be an interesting one when things get sort of mandated. So yeah, I think the CFOs will be playing a very, very crucial part, and I think it's one of those things where it'll again, I think much like with so many times. CFOs, will come to the platform and rise to the occasion. But I think that it's definitely going to be time consuming. I think that obviously the more complex an organization is in terms of reporting and obviously rolling out ESG. It's funny. It's been out there for a long time. I remember when it was CSR, sort of corporate social responsibility, and then prior to that it was something else. And if you think back to things like the Al Gore movie, The Inconvenient Truth, it's kind of been out there for a long. It's been out there for a long, long time, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of greenwashing, green wishing, green everything. I truly feel that things are starting to change, but it's one of those things where, yeah, it's as I say, it always kind of gets kicked down the road. Some things happen very, very quickly. Other things are a lot slower, and I think that this is one of those things because it's an enormous topic. You can't it is starting to impact climate change. So I think it's definitely going to be a lot more prevalent on the agenda for CFOs next year and going forward. But yeah, as I say, I still feel it's a bit of an elephant in the room in terms of sort of kicking that can down the road.
Great question, Sam, on Instagram Live there. Thank you so much. And where do you see the CFO leadership profession and general accounting in over the next 10 years with this rise of AI yourself there, Richard?
Again, a great question. I think, like with so many professions and industries, no one really can sort of foresee how AI is going to change things. Obviously, it's fair to say it's going to change things dramatically. People are already starting to dabble with AI in the form of things like ChatGPT and Claude and all of the sort of the easily accessible apps. Some of the companies are starting to run, and I think it's going to be a little bit like the the .com sort of bubble, where I think there'll be a few failures along the way, but ultimately it'll sort of muddle its way through. And like it with everything, I think with technology, there'll be less failures than the previous sort of .com boom or burst. But I think, if you look at, there is a bit of an issue in the accounting world in terms of there's a drop in graduates. The pathway to CFO now goes sort of through different ways. If you look at things like Seek, they appointed a marketing director to be their current CFO. So the FP&A now is definitely a pathway to the CFO role. So investment bankers can become CFOs, especially in things like fintech and fast growth companies and technology businesses. So the rules are changing. The goalposts have moved ever so slightly. It's no longer that sort of traditional accounting pathway. And obviously, I think people also, younger generations, kind of make myself sound old now, but younger generations want that CFO role a lot quicker. I think, sort of previously that pathway might have taken, 20, 25 years to get to that sort of CFO role. Whereas, people come straight out of university and they go, I want to be a CFO and I want to be a CFO of a fintech company or an AI company. So I think that, things are going to happen a lot faster in the next 10 years. And I think that there'll be different, as I say, it may not necessarily be that stock standard accounting sort of way. Again, I was talking to a CFO recently and they said, you used to have to sort of earn your stripes by doing those manual processes, doing all those laborious sort of jobs and time consuming jobs and staying back late in the office and being the first one to arrive, so that the CFO could see that you're doing that. Now technology is going to do those roles. So technology will replace those manual, arduous sort of processes. So I think it'll be interesting to see how people fast track to CFO or even just progress to CFOs compared to the last sort of 20 years. So it's definitely an interesting time, and I think it'll just shake things up like with so many professions.
Very cogent insights there indeed there, Richard. We're getting towards the end of the stream, everyone. So please, any burning questions, I'm keeping an eye on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Face, Twitch, and Instagram Live. So please put it in the show notes and I'll go in the comments and I'll endeavor to get back to them. So, obviously we stand on the shoulders of giants there, Richard. We cannot get to where we are on our own. I know some people claim that they have, but who's been the most influential mentor in your life and why?
Oh, I mean, I'm going to have to give a shout out to my dad. Obviously, my dad would be, someone where every day he's in the UK, and we don't see each other anywhere near as often in person as we should. But yeah, my dad, has just laid those foundations. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think of something that he sort of instilled in me from a values perspective. And then I think that if I think back to, I've never really had necessarily a direct mentor. Obviously, I get the opportunity to sort of listen to hundreds and hundreds of CFOs and CEOs and chairpersons, and so I've picked up lots of snippets along the way, and that's been fantastic. But I would also say that I've had some pretty bad bosses in my time as well. So I've had a couple.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, that's it. And I think that they've probably taught me how not to do things in life, as opposed to the people that have taught me the things to do in life. So I remember two bosses in particular. I won't name names clearly, but
No.
And they, as I say, they kind of taught me how not to do things. So and I would say that I've probably learned more from them how not to do things than I have from other people of how to do things. But as I say, I have this brilliant job that allows me to hear snippets of wisdom on a daily basis, which is just great. So again, I sort of take all these little gems along the way and put them into practice whenever I can.
I absolutely love that. And shout out to Jeff and Steve, your previous bosses, not real names, but they definitely received a mention in this show. But yeah, Wiley book of what not to do. Indeed,
Yes.
I've had a few of those myself as well. But lessons for young professionals. This is a good point. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. Obviously, we want our heroes ready-made. We want to get to CFO as quickly as possible. But I think Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook back in the day, wrote in her book, Lean In, it's not the corporate ladder anymore. It's the jungle gym. So sometimes you got to go up, down, side to side. Like that's the current environment. So what's some lessons or cogent insights you could give to young professionals starting out in the finance or otherwise, professional arena?
Yeah, look, I obviously, my whole life is all about sort of networking. It's about getting out there. I think you can't get out and meet enough people. I think that it's very competitive. Is this world, and I see that a lot. I see a lot of CFOs where they may sort of lose their job, they may be sort of made redundant, and it can be tough to sort of get back out there and reinvent yourself in some cases. So, and I think that in this day and age as well. Obviously, I speak to a lot of recruiters in the CFO and
yes.
just the sort of finance space more broadly. I think check your LinkedIn profile. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is active, because that these days is the first place that people will look at. Again, laws of LinkedIn. That's it. Check it. Make sure your profile photo is relatively up to date. Make sure that your achievements are up to date. Make sure that your connections are up to date, because you can't underestimate the importance of a network, and that, as I say, is both online and in real life. I look at a lot of CFOs. You'll sort of see people that will move across, and you'll go, oh wow, I didn't realize that they were there, and then you'll kind of look at it and go, oh, that's why, because their previous employer, they've moved across. They were working with them in that company. They've now moved across. I got chatting to a CFO fairly recently, and I said, when you start, in a new organization, what do you do? And she goes, well, I bring some of the best people from my previous job, because we've got that trust, we've got that relationship. So, again, you never want to burn any bridges, especially in Australia. It's a very small place. It's a big place.
Oh my gosh,
small
isn't
place.
it just?
And, in certain states, say WA and SA, it can be 2 degrees separation. Sydney's a little bit bigger and a bit more, as you say, of a sort of jungle. But never be afraid to reach out to someone and ask for help. I've done it my entire sort of professional career, reaching out, saying, would you speak at an event for me? Would you sit on a panel session? CFOs are always incredibly generous with their time, but they're also, I find, the last people to ask for help. So I think that there's this, people have said the CFO role can be a lonely role, because you're supposed to know everything. The people above you sort of have that expectation that you know everything. People below you sort of look up to you because you're supposed to know everything. So it's like, well, where do CFOs go to get their information? And it's their peer group.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a coffee with a small group, whether it's a larger sort of more mentor sort of based network, whether it's an industry based network. I just think that the power of networks, and you can go in and out of those. You don't have to commit your whole life to it. I've seen CFOs where they're very, very active for a few years.
Yes.
Then they'll kind of drop out a little bit. They've got family commitments. Then they'll sort of hit a certain phase in their career, and they'll get back into it again. So it is. I've always said, as I say, never sort of fail to reach out to a CFO, because chances are they'll help you out. So if you're someone that is looking for a mentor or looking for a bit more of a network, then build those bridges, because it can take you to great places.
Absolutely. You are tuning in to Mr. Richard McBride, the leading editor at CFO Magazine. If you've got any last-minute questions, please let me know. We're about to come with some final questions and end the stream, but it has been a plethora of nuggets you're dispensing at the moment there, Richard. So thank you so much. If you could change one thing about how the CFO or finance profession operates today, you can be as scathing or as inspirational as you like. What would it be, Richard?
I sort of going on from the last question. I think CFOs need to be more out there. They need to be more proud. You look at marketing and sales and CEOs. They're always beating their own drums and sort of doing that self-promotion, as people should. Again, we live in a day and age where if you don't talk about yourself, if you don't get yourself out there, if you don't post those things, no one's going to do it for you. So I think that CFOs could certainly still be a little bit more out there. There's some that are really good. They've got amazing presence online. They've got and they can back it up as well. They know exactly what they're doing. But I think that sometimes it's like, don't be afraid. Just throw it out there. Get yourself out there. We sort of live in a day and age where you have to have a gimmick. You have to have not a gimmick, but you have to have something where
There's got to be some sort of shtick, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's just about kind of getting yourself out there and doing that one thing, making those posts and not doing, not just being silent out there. People need to hear you, they need to see you. And as I say, if you want to kind of hit that C-suite, if you want to be in that CFO role, then people are going to, if you're recruiting for a finance team, the first thing that they're going to do is go, do I want to work with this CFO? Do I want to work with this person?
Good point.
And the only way they're going to find that out is, have they been interviewed? Do they do panel sessions? Do they post comments? Do they have blogs, etc.? So, it may feel a little uncomfortable and it's something that you wouldn't necessarily normally do. But I think that in this day and age, you've got to do that self promotion, and I think that CFOs do themselves a disservice and need to get out there that little bit more and reach out to me. I say, do you want to interview me? I've got a great story to share. I always think everybody's got a story. It can be a personal story. We've done stories about heart attack survivors that are CFOs, all the way through to CFOs that by day, they work in, I think it was a toy store, they were the CFO of a toy store, and at night they did raves. They were like a techno DJ. So everyone's got a story, and and then it can be a tale of transformation. It can be a journey. It can be a merger and acquisition. There's, it can be a relationship, story about how to build better relations with C-suite or with the board. So, reach out to me. I'm always open.
This is a free advertising for you, everyone. So if you're a CFO and you want your story heard, the first point I would say is reach out to Richard and his fine team at CFO Magazine. Get your story known, because the second thing I want to say, and it is by a very polarizing man, Mr. Grant Cardone, but say what you want about that man. One thing he did say, which I love, is there's no ROI on doing nothing. So you have to put yourself out there. Otherwise, you cannot get a return on your investment, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years later. People won't flow you until they know you. So put yourself out there. And the last thing I want to say, which is what I do cover in my book, is basically we've all been to the barbecue where Bob comes up to you and says, "Oh, Richard, I've just been written up in another great magazine. It's been fantastic." And it's like, "Oh, Bob, I work for CFO Magazine. I could have interviewed you." We've all been there where someone's used your service with someone else, and that's not their fault. It's your fault for not putting yourself out there and letting people know what you do. And I think it's the culture in Australia. I don't know if it's in the UK, stiff upper lip there, Richard, but over here in Australia, it's called tall poppy syndrome. Yep. And the tall poppy gets cut down, and you're not allowed to boost your own trumpet. But if you don't do it, no one else will do it for you. And there's a way to do it. You can have the tallest building out in the city by either building your own up, or you can tear others down. And unfortunately, people choose the latter and not the former. We need more people building up their own towers.
100%, Cullen. Fully agree.
Oh, I love your work. And last question, it might be a bit morbid, but I think it's a great question when you look back in retrospect. When all is said and done, how would Mr. Richard McBride like to be remembered one day?
Well, look, a national treasure springs to mind.
State funeral. He was.
No, look, I think when I speak to CFOs and as I've built some amazing friendships and relationships over the years. I have people that will sort of send me messages every once in a while saying, thanks, Richard. I've really enjoyed coming to your events and reading the articles and the publications, the webinars. I'm now retiring, and so I've sort of seen people go over the last 20 years from they would have been in their mid 40s back then. They're now kind of in their mid to late 60s, 70s.
Wow.
And I want to be remembered as as someone who was a decent guy and who just wanted to bring people together and connect like-minded people. So if I can, we always said sort of back in the day was it was all about connecting. It was all about building those relationships, whether it be with a sponsor that can help you out with some technology or your banking or insurance or whatever it may be, or indeed meeting a contact that can get you a job. And I've heard all kinds of things that have come off the back of our events. I was talking to a CFO just recently, and he said, I met my predecessor was at one of your conferences. I got talking to them. They said that he was looking for a replacement. And so he said, thank you, because I wouldn't have got this job if I didn't come to your event.
Wow.
Now, I'm having this opportunity. I've had others where they've had mentors from our events. They've In other cases, they've managed to save a lot of money or a lot of hassle through suppliers that they've made contact with. So
Yes.
there's a very long-winded answer to the question, but to be a good connector and a nice guy, and if I can have national treasure along the way, then all the better.
Well, you're already doing that, mon ami. You're already doing that. And where can people find you the most? Where are you hanging out the most? Someone wants to have a coffee, rendezvous, or otherwise. What's the best way?
I'm at the moment based between Sydney and Melbourne. Melbourne is home, so I'm inner city, Richmond, where all the good coffee shops are. So as I say, if you really want to find me on a day-to-day basis, I'll be around Richmond. But as I say, I spend a lot of time in Sydney, a bit of time in Brisbane. I tend to sort of fly around, and if a good opportunity presents itself, I will get on a plane and I will get there. So yes. So if anyone ever needs to kind of reach out, I'm very contactable. All my contact details are on LinkedIn. I will pretty much accept most contacts. So yeah, feel free to reach out, especially if you're a CFO or a aspiring CFO or 2IC, because as I say, that's my entire life and has been for the last 20 years, and I perceive will be for the next 20 years as well. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. You're only 25 years old right now there, Richard. So you'll be 45 in the next 20 years. So you'll be still doing this for many years to come, no doubt. Thank you for being the national treasure. Thank you for all that you do in the industry, my friend. We're going to bring you back with some bonus questions in just a moment. Thanks, Richard. And if you're a Ledger legend or know someone who is and you want to be on the show or you want to be on CFO Magazine stage, get in touch. Come to me, come to Richard. We come out every Wednesday with our Live with Cullen Haynes show talking about either law live with our legends of law, Ledger legends for accountants and CFOs and allied finance professionals, or Live with Cullen Haynes, where we talk to other industry leaders. As I said before, we had Simon Cullen, the #1 buyer's agent in the country, on our Live with Cullen Haynes show last week. Check that out. But nonetheless, thank you for watching. Thank you for re-listening. And if you get on the podcast, Live with Cullen Haynes, be sure to give it a cheeky like and follow. Nonetheless, all the best, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Bye for now, and make it count. Bringing you back, Richard, I got some bonus questions, mon ami. If you had to explain your role to a child, how would you go about doing that, sir?
Oh, that's a great question. And actually, for a long time, my daughter did say, "What do you do, Dad?"
What do you actually do? Come on.
Which I think all children sort of ask that question. What do you do, Dad? I would say, if I had to explain to my daughter, I organize big parties, and at those parties, you bring a lot of fun people together. There's entertainers, there's food, there's all the food and drink, and yeah, I bring great people together.
I love that. I love that. And you certainly do that for sure. And maybe on that note, if your colleagues or peers had to describe you in one sentence, what would they say?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question.
I only ask questions.
He's what I hope they say is he's a good guy.
Absolutely. I've heard that around the traps, I must say, at those great coffee shops.
I've also had I have been in airports and other places where people have gone, "You're that CFO guy."
Yeah.
So I've had that as well.
Very good. Very good. Well, it's better than someone else. So I'm either known as the LinkedIn guy, the finance for lawyers guy. Someone said I look like the happy version of Peter Dutton. I don't know if that's a good one. Or the Australian version of Stanley Tucci. So it's
I'll go
crazy
with that.
what comes
I'll
out.
take that.
Very good. But I know we touched on it offline. There is another famous McBride out there, Jeff McBride. I used to be a magician. I used to love this guy. So if you haven't make sure you follow Richard, but make sure you have a look at cheeky Jeff McBride and see what he does in the magic realm. I know you're a bit of a fan of magic as well there, Richard.
Absolutely. I will look that up, Cullen. I say, and I didn't realize that you were a magician or a former magician. So, although once a magician, always a magician. But now I'll discuss that on another occasion. But yes, that's fantastic, and I will look up Jeff McBride.
Definitely, mon ami. Definitely. It'll be well worth your time. And if you could give yourself advice at any age, it's the last question of the stream, guys. So this is one of my favorites because I'm a big Back to the Future fan. If we could get in the DeLorean, go back and gun it to 88, where would you go back? When would you go back and see yourself? And what would the advice you'd give your younger self be?
Oh, that is a great question.
It's deep. It's deep.
It is. It's a very deep question. Look, I think, I think like so many people, there's a lot of uncertainties, when you're sort of around that kind of 11, 12. I was in the north of England, things, my parents provided a great platform for me, but at the same time, I remember when I took that first job offer to work in France, I think I would go back to that point and go, don't worry about it. Do not have any regrets. This is all going to work out absolutely fine. So yes, that would be probably circa kind of 1999, 2000. So yes, I think it would just be going back and just telling my younger self, don't worry, you got this.
You've got this. That is wise and timeless wisdom, I must say. Thank you so much for all you do, Richard. It's been amazing having you on Ledger Legends, episode 18. Thanks so much, my friend.
Cullen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Great to catch up with you again, and anytime.
Anytime, on a man. We'll finish with a little bit of magic. Let's go.
Oh, look at that.
There we go. Once an edition, always an edition, my friend. Coming out of retirement just for you. Nonetheless, everyone, bye for now. Have a happy Wednesday and take care. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cullen. Appreciate your time.
Good man. Hey there, Cullen Haynes here, Australia's leading broker for lawyers on LinkedIn, and here's why I want to talk to you today about my book, my new book, The Laws of LinkedIn, 23 ways to find your tribe, build your following, and make 7 figures on LinkedIn. When I started this journey 7 years ago, when we built, myself and Andrew, my business partner, we built legal home loans from the ground up, the pain point for us was we were at a standing start. No one knew who we were. We had no money, we had no contacts, and basically we had to find a way to make our voice heard, talk to our tribe, the legal community, and build trust. And the only thing we had at our disposal was LinkedIn, which was and still is free. There's over 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and I wish when I started I had this book with me to guide me, because I basically distilled my 23 top leading hacks that we use to build our business to a 7+ figure, and I really want to get it out there and share it with you. So if you're